January 20th, 2020. 2021, excuse me. I'm Tulio Surgusa, broadcasting from Southern California, and I'm joined by Carlos Ponce in Cuernavaca, Mexico. Hi, Carlos.
Hey,
welcome
Tulio.
back.
Thank you.
And of course, why do we do this? We do this because we like talking to the movers and shakers of the tech industry, the founders of the newest and emerging technology. And we have today Jim Coleman and David Tran, who are the co-founders of xFusion, with us. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tulio. Excited to be here.
All right, so we got an interesting topic to discuss today, but before we do that, let's get to know you guys a little bit. If you could take each one of you just a minute or two introducing yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background for the audience, and then we'll talk about your company after that.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you. So my name is Jim. I'm the co-founder of xFusion. My background is pretty lengthy and varied. I was in law enforcement years ago and then kind of jumped into the business world. Started with local service companies, graduated to an e-commerce subscription box company, and then into the SaaS space. So I had a SaaS for a few years, ended up selling that, and then the company that bought it actually hired me to work on operations and customer success for that company and others. And then I ended up leading operations for a SaaS investment fund, effectively going through the due diligence process, acquiring different assets, and getting leadership in place and running those. And I met David actually through that process. He bought a SaaS asset, and then David and I actually created a team to run both of our SaaS businesses. And we started, I guess, getting into the outsourcing world. We experimented with outsourcing, worked with a competitor of ours, and then started growing our own team internally. And kind of the rest is history. So David and I have been working together for a couple of years and just really focusing on customer support and success.
Thank you. David, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Hey there, everyone. My name is David Tran, also the other co-founder of xFusion.io. I have a lot short of a background than Jim. My background is actually in software engineering. I used to really love playing video games as a kid, and I thought to myself, oh, when I get older, I want to create my own video games. So I studied computer science at Berkeley, and then worked at Salesforce and Uber afterward, working on automation, like anti-fraud systems, and as well as like growth referral tracking within Uber.
Very cool. And you've got some serious podcasting equipment there, putting us all to shame.
Yeah.
Love it.
People look at this and think it's for podcasting, but the original reason I got this was I actually just wanted to learn how to like train my voice for singing. Nothing related to podcasting.
Oh, wow.
But then COVID happened, and then I'm like, well, I guess I have to change my plans if I can't take like singing lessons anymore.
I thought you were running an after-hours radio show or something. That's pretty cool. Well, that's great. Well, that's a whole nother show we can talk about. So let's talk about xFusion. You guys met each other basically managing a portfolio of companies. I'm assuming it was for either private equity or venture capital or something of a hybrid in between. And you met there, and what gave this idea of, let's start xFusion? What gave birth to the idea, and what do you guys do? What does the company do?
So originally, I acquired an asset from Jim's former employer, and I was still working at Uber as a software engineer at the time, and I realized there's only ever so many hours in the day. So I can't both do a great job at my business and a great job at work. And since the thing that was paying my bills was my job, I thought that was appropriate to make my top priority. So I originally wanted to work with Jim as someone who can help run the operations for my business and maintain all the customer relationships as it previously was before I acquired it. And that's how our relationship got started. We then realized that what we were doing for the businesses that we owned was something that a lot of other businesses also could benefit from. A lot of people out there are technical founders. A lot of people out there are like part-time owners where they have a primary job as well as own a business on the side, and they just want substantial help or they just benefit a lot from having someone else take the reins and give them back a lot of their time. So a lot of them would either want better work-life balance or better focus on engineering, product development, or marketing.
Cool. Well, we're excited to talk to you about our topic today because it's something that's near and dear to all of us here. So Carlos, please introduce the topic. Let's go right into it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Tulio. And of course, thanks to our guests for being with us today. Today, we're going to be speaking about customer-centric tech support. In other words, we're going to be answer. Our guests are going to be answering the question on why leading with empathy, prioritizing relationships, and building a culture of ownership means delivering over-the-top customer service experiences for software company founders. So, first question that I have for you, David and Jim, why did you choose this particular topic? Why do you think it's relevant for this day and age in the software or tech world?
Yeah. David, do you want to take that one or you want me to?
I can take this one.
Go for it.
So one of the things I see a lot in this, like the software space, is that there's just simply a lot of SaaS startups out there. And from a consumer perspective, a lot of them may not have a lot of clear differences. But I think one of the clear differences that has always worked in the world of making money in businesses is the fact that you build a relationship with customers. And that is really the differentiator. I think people I think it's something along the lines of like 90% of people determine which companies they're loyal to based on the customer support interactions they have. And as like startups get bigger and bigger, both in terms of like rounds of funding as well as how many users they have, I feel like you're seeing this effect of winner takes all or winner takes most of any individual market, no matter how niche it is. And one of the key ways that we see people differentiate themselves from their competitors is how well they have a like tight knit, just a really solid view of their customer's journey from both like pre-sales to like onboarding and into like the stable lifecycle section of their loyalty.
Great, thank you so much. Jim, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback on that and say that I think we're seeing a decent sized shift in the way that customer support is being handled for SaaS startups. The outsourcing has a bad rap because a lot of outsourcing locations are sort of like, sweat camp type atmospheres and just really deliver a low level of support. And I think we're seeing a shift from that to companies that are more interested in providing a higher level of support. And it was interesting that Dave and I, we had this experience working with another outsourced company that provided per response agents. And basically the idea is one agent would work across 5 or 6 different clients, and we just got a really low level of support. So we thought, gosh, how can we do this better and provide a higher level of support at a reasonable rate? And that's really what's the genesis of xFusion. And we've been just so grateful to see that so many of our clients are in alignment with the idea of providing next level customer experience to their customers. That's just been a real win.
So it's something interesting about your topic today. You mentioned, why leading with empathy and prioritizing relationship is important. And when I think of customer support, historically, there's this immediate focus on SLAs and speed of response, how often you're available. There's this mechanistic approach to putting those relationships in place, with rarely the discussion goes to, how well those support people are going to actually practice empathy when a customer calls in. That's like an afterthought, right? But the first thing is, are you going to be available? How fast? How can you respond? And how can I punish you if you don't respond fast? I mean, that's the conversation. That's where business goes. That's where it's gone for years. I was in that space for many years. So curious about, how do you put that into practice? Is that something you first put in place internally amongst the employees before you bring that out to the customers? How's that working for you guys?
So I want to share a quick story before I answer the question, or Jim answers the question. But it's very clear when you see a business and you're interacting with their customer support, when there's just a misalignment of incentives. Like, I think no company on the earth plans for unempathetic, like harsh customer support. No one plans for that. But you see it happen occasionally, or you see a lot of missteps when a company, and imagine the conversation goes something like this. A manager tells their frontline employee, like, hey, I want you to provide empathetic customer support, but by the way, these are the OKRs we're using to track your performance. And there's like no real measurement on empathy, right? Like, you can't say like, oh yeah, David was a 75% empathetic human being today. Like, it just, like, I feel like it's there or it's not there, and or at least on a per relationship basis. And it's unfortunate that people say one thing but they behave another way. And I think it's really important to have the alignment between what you say and what the results that you want. So I think there's a lot of companies out there who probably track like, hey, how many tickets did you respond to in a given like window of time? And one of the reasons Jim and I are like against the per response model is that at some level it incentivizes bad responses. Because then the customer needs to come back and say like, hey, you didn't answer my question. Like I asked for X and you gave me Y, and like that just doesn't work out for anyone, right? Like it doesn't make sense for the consumer. It doesn't, but it's for whatever reason it makes sense for the employee, and the employer feels happier because they get charged a premium. And like the whole problem of like misaligned incentives is like one of the reasons we got into this business.
Nice.
Yeah, that's super well said. I'll just add that, like, from the beginning, we have to make sure we set clear expectations both on the client side and on the prospective agent side. And we do that by making sure that we express during a sales call what our ethos is and what our focus is, because not all clients or prospective clients are interested in offering next level support. And if they're not, they're just not a good fit. So it's important for us to set those expectations and just have a conversation about what it means to us to lead support with empathy and prioritizing quality over quantity. And then having the very same conversation. And this is challenging to set up our culture in a way that points to our true north from the very, very beginning, from our initial hiring process to the vetting process of the early training process, to then as you know, the employee spends more and more time on our business or in our business, for them to understand what our true north is and to continually provide that level of support.
I got a question. You have okay, let's put it this way. On one end, you have company founders, software company founders, and then on the other end of the spectrum is your actual team of customer support agents. So probably the what one party expects from the other might be different. So because we're talking about leading with empathy, relationships, building a culture of ownership, which are essentially soft skills that might need to be how can I say this, to permeate all the way down to the team. How do you make sure that your teammates and your agents are well aware of what is expected from them on the end of the client side? Because in the end, correct me if I'm wrong, but because I'm not an engineer, but at the end of the day, it's not just about the tickets and the transactions and the technology, but it's also about the human side of the equation. So how would you say that it needs to be done or needs to happen to make things flow seamlessly, considering soft skills that are needed for a seamless operation?
Yeah, it's very difficult to hire a tier 2 support person, which is someone that has engineering skill, that has the requisite hard skills and the soft skills. I think and maybe this is shifting, but there's just been a focus on the development of hard skills, almost at the exclusion of the soft skills. It's difficult to find a qualified engineer level support person that also has the soft skills. And we've developed a vetting process in our application process that allows us to sort of screen for some of those things. We ask questions that evaluate their level of empathy, that kind of help us get an understanding of what they would do in a certain theoretical situation, how far they might go to take care of the client. We're not looking for them to understand our methodology or have a lot of specific expertise, but we just want to know how they think. You know, are they thinking in a customer-centric way? And I mean, we only hire somewhere between 0.5 and 0.7% of the total applicants we get. So it's like, it's quite a screening process to find people that are aligned in that way. But then we find, like, I think it's pretty natural for us to acclimate to a culture. I mean, you see this in like adoptive families, for example. You see this in organizations. I think, well, for example, you take Chick-fil-A. You know, they're known for customer support. When somebody comes into Chick-fil-A, into that environment, there's an expectation that's set that we deliver this level of performance. And maybe they worked at Taco Bell previously and had a much lower expectation. But I think that you'll find that most people will rise to that occasion and meet that expectation if they understand what the expectation is.
Thanks. Thank you, Jim. We have a question, actually, but the question is not from our end. It came from the outside. And actually, the question is from Alexander Shartzis. He right now, let me just give you the scoop. Alexander Shartzis is an entrepreneur in the tech space, and he has a specific question. I'm just going to read it back to you, and then you can respond accordingly as you see fit. Okay? He says, we hired someone in San Francisco who was excellent, but about about 2 times what you guys cost. One thing she did was build out our chat automation, reducing workload. Is that a best practice? Do you help with that? That's his question.
I can't say we've done that for an existing client, but almost everyone we worked with already has that stuff in place. What we have done for clients, though, is within a framework that they've established. Like if they set the skeleton there, we can build upon the skeleton. We can create a system of saved replies such that if one of many common questions arises, we can just use a couple of like keyboard macros to immediately get the same thing shared to the customer right away. But in terms of building out something from scratch, that's something Jim and I have talked about, like in terms of like wanting to provide this idea of like support plus, where we go above and beyond what other support companies would provide. So both in terms of things related to support and things that aren't necessarily adjacent to support, but could help provide value to businesses in other way. Examples being a lot of back office processing, like data processing, image recognition, like form organization, are a common like set of challenges that a lot of technical companies will have, but they don't necessarily have a good way to manage at an efficient cost. You'll see a lot of times like highly paid either engineers, product managers, customer success managers, frequently in the areas like San Francisco, be paid wages of like, call it 100,000 plus, in addition to like equity in the company. And they're spending their time doing this sort of stuff when those needs arise, when it could be outsourced at a much lower rate and freeing up their time and ability to focus on other tasks that require like deep work to get, I guess, real levels of results.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. There you have it, Alexander. So, Tulio, do you have anything else?
Yeah, of course. This is something near and dear to the legacy of our company for the past 15 years in terms of creating a culture of ownership. We believe the more people have ownership, the more they're treated as adults, the more they act as adults, and therefore you don't need all these structures in place, hierarchy, et cetera, to get things done. So there's a lot of nuances to managing a business that way. You said here about building a culture of ownership. What does that mean to you guys in terms of building a culture of ownership, and how is that impacting your ability to deliver a higher level of service with agents that have more empathy and have more of a sense of trying to solve the client's problem, not just as someone who's clocking in and clocking out, but someone who actually has a vested interest to making that happen? How is that working out? How have you structured to make that work for you guys?
Yeah. I think that it starts by extending trust from the beginning. We decided as a company that we were not going to use any sort of screen recording software to monitor our staff. We hire very slow and very carefully, and we fire quickly. And we also extend a lot of autonomy to our team leaders. You really have to make a decision from the beginning. Am I going to lead this this relationship with trust? Am I going to extend trust automatically and then just rescind that if it's abused, or is someone going to have to earn my trust? And what we've learned is if we extend trust initially, one, people almost always rise to that, and two, it allows us to go significantly faster. And it's very rarely that doesn't work out. We've had to let one person go from our team, and that actually just happened today, interestingly enough, because they just weren't meeting expectations. But what's interesting is we've worked with building up our leadership team is something that's incredibly important to us, and giving them a significant amount of autonomy. So we knew we were going to have to let this person go because unfortunately they weren't meeting expectations. So the leadership team was completely responsible for interviewing and hiring the replacement. They literally made the hiring decision, hired that person, and then they were responsible for the process of letting go of the person we had to let go. So we've extended a significant amount of trust to them, and that permeates the culture. Everybody kind of understands that that's the way that it is, and we expect them to act as owners. And that's allowed Dave and I to operate in a much more lean way. We don't really have middle management layers, and we don't intend to ever have that because we extend so much trust to the individual contributors all the way up the chain.
To add upon that, I think people by nature have this desire to pursue mastery over a given craft. And if you're in the domain of like technical support, there's usually one of three ways I see people want to take their career. Either one is you want to like grow really deep in technical expertise, Another one is you want to grow more in like consumer expertise, where you go down the route of being a customer success manager. And the third is you become a manager of people. And I think I think people don't give. I think an idea that's underrated is the idea that people rise to the challenges that they're given. And if you give people more autonomy to operate, and you give them like, hey, this is the set of domain of skills that I want you to eventually develop, and if it's in line with what they want to master in the course of their career, if you give them more challenges, they'll usually very frequently rise to the level that you expect of them, and usually derive greater work-life balance as well as satisfaction from their work.
Yeah, I'd love to say that we lead and not manage, and there's a difference there.
Excellent. All right. So you're providing custom support, technical support. Is this level 1, level 2 for software, for SaaS companies, or is this more customer service oriented? Can you give us a bit more detail on the specificity about the product and the service offerings?
Sure. So we do offer both tier 1 and tier 2. We think we provide the most value to our clients providing tier 2 support, because the people that we hire, I think almost everyone on our team has a computer science background, and there's just a lot of technical education out there that exists in the world that I think people haven't recognized. And I come from Silicon Valley. I just only recently moved from there. And like, it wouldn't be surprising, like when you hear about engineers making in the range of like $300,000 to $500,000 once you include all the benefits and all the equity and all the salary and bonuses. And that isn't to say that like these people are necessarily the brightest. They just happen to be, my personal belief is that at some level they're just at the right place at the right time. There's a lot of brilliant people out there who had education either in the international space, or some of them even watch like the MIT recorded lectures, which are available for free for everyone. And they're learning, they're self-learning. And I think there's this rise of self-learning and self-education that gives more people internationally the same level of access, or similar levels of access as America, or at least dramatically better as before, enabling them to be highly technical people, as well as being able to offer a price point that is substantially lower than what you might need to pay an engineer.
Excellent. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about, we're coming up on time. Let's talk a little bit more about your culture and the experiences that you've had in building this company. Both of you are not new to startup, to building a business. Is there anything new that you learned in this environment that was different from perhaps your past experience? What were some of those lessons that, were like, aha, we shouldn't do it this way, or aha, we should do it this way, that you'd like to share perhaps with some other founders who are, maybe help them avoid some of their own lessons through your own experiences? What would those, maybe 1 or 2 things that stand out for you that were like, this is what we learned and this is what we applied?
Yeah.
The final words of wisdom.
I'm sure we both have quite a few to share, but like xFusion is a very people-centric business. And, it's been so important for us to get to know our agents and our clients or prospective clients and just really focus on them. But one of the key things for me has been recognizing that I always need to find the highest and best use of my time. And I need to continually trust my team. And early on in my entrepreneurial journey, I really believed selfishly, and it's embarrassing to admit this, that like I was the one that needed to do everything, that I needed to if it's going to be done right, I need to do it, and I don't believe that anymore. But it's hard to jump off from that and really extend trust. But that's allowed us to grow so much quicker than we otherwise would. So for me, it's just continuing to remind myself, like, what is the highest and best use of my time, and that I always want to extend that trust to the team, which allows us to move at a faster pace than we otherwise would.
So the funny thing is, I had the exact same line of thinking as Jim. I think building a team and building the right team is the most important component of a business. I don't think the other components are as important unless you have this one first. You need to have the set of like shared values. Like you have to hire people who have integrity. Like I think that's just table stakes. And from there, you need to give them responsibilities and increasing the responsibilities over time, as well as like being very generous with the way you treat them. I like to live by the golden rule, the idea that I want to treat people the way I would like to be treated. So while it doesn't necessarily like map out perfectly, we try our best to like strive after that.
So guys, I would say I spent half of my career, the first half of my career of 31 years now, with big companies. And most large software companies understand the value of having technical support and having that infrastructure in place. It's needed and it's required by many of their enterprise clients. In startups over the past 15 years, I've seen a little bit more of a laxed approach to that, and a lot more has been left for the engineers and those teams to take on those calls and deal with some of those issues. Are you still seeing a lack of investment in actually putting in place technical support from these startups, or is that changing? And what are some of the challenges you have in helping organizations understand how critically important that aspect of their business is, as we wrap up?
I see it in I think most startups I see take their company's customer support in one of two directions. The first direction is in the very beginning days, either the founder themselves or an early stage engineer does a lot of the technical tickets. And then maybe they might have a product manager to handle the non-technical tickets. And the other extreme is they try to outsource as soon as possible to the lowest cost at the lowest cost available. So this is usually somewhere in the ballpark of like $5 an hour to somewhere in the international space. And there's nothing inherently wrong with outsourcing, but I think it comes down to the system by which you hire and vet people and the system by which you lead people. Like a lot of times they'll hire someone and then not give them a good set of principles to operate by. So these people are coming without a strong background in understanding what it means to provide top tier customer support experiences. And they're just like, hey, you're now in charge of this entire department. Do whatever you think is best. And these people without leadership, without experience, it could work out, but I think more often than not, it leads to misaligned incentives and broken expectations. And that's a part of the reason I think that outsourcing gets its bad rap.
Yeah, I would probably think VCs are partly to blame for that, right? The milestone is achieving certain number of customers, so the strive is to get to that point at all costs, right? And everything else is not important, even though you might lose some of those customers as soon as you lock in the next round of money. So, obviously, it sounds to me that you can't sacrifice the value that you offer and create and continue to provide to your clients. It's been great to have you guys with us. As we are wrapping up, just stay with us as we go off the air. Any final questions, Carlos, before we talk about what's next week?
Yeah, actually internal from Ancora. And one of the engineers, Margarito Sanchez, he says, from the engineering perspective, so do engineers start with other activities like project management, for example? That's what his question is. So I don't know if we can tie it into the topic, but that's what his question is.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. So this is exactly what I have.
As a startup, do engineers get involved with project management up front? That's, I think, the question, correct?
From the engineering perspective, do engineers start with other activities like project management? So that's exactly, I'm just quoting.
I see.
Okay. If it's not clear, we can follow up at a later time or just have him ask to Twitter, but because of time constraints. But that was his question, by the way. If you can answer that, that's fine.
Guess the intent of the question. My best guess as an answer would be no one really plans for. I think a lot of the things about the startup land is that things are unplanned. Like you might have a giant vision as to how you're going to scale out your engineering org, and you're going to hire the first engineer to lead it. But inherently, all these additional roles come up, and there's not someone else you can defer to. So someone has to take it, and usually the person that's just closest is the one that's going to take it. And a lot of times, if a ticket involves technical expertise, or if a task involves project management on the engineer's behalf, I think it's reasonable that people will think that that task belongs to them.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say if you're going to go down a startup, there's no specifically defined line of demarcation between roles. You just all roll up your sleeves and do what needs to be done. So that's just, and people love that. You either love that or you hate that. And if you hate that, startups like, it's not for you, right? So it's been great to have you guys with us. Thank you for joining us. Stay with us.
Thanks for having us.
Off the air. But Carlos, what do we got coming up?
Yeah, Tulio, thank you. Next week, we have 2 confirmed shows. The first one on Wednesday, we are going to be speaking with, let's see, I got it right here. The one on Wednesday, we're going to be speaking with Porter. No, I'm sorry. Beth Porter is on Thursday. We're going to be speaking with Melissa Ribeiro from Actian. And Actian is, hold on one second, please, here. We're going to be speaking with Actian, a company that offers on-premises and cloud data management solutions for. So that's what they do. That's their core business. And then on Thursday, we're going to be speaking with Beth Porter from Riff Analytics. And actually, a couple of years ago. And by the way, David and Jim, she's the one that I've been talking about regarding xFusion. So I encourage everyone, both our guests and also our viewers, to join us next week on these two shows, and right here on DojoLIVE at 12 p.m. Pacific time. And of course, there's the recap show, right, on Monday. We're going to be recapping this show with David and Tran and a couple of others that we've done on Monday at 12 noon. It's a 10-minute wrap-up. If anyone out there is watching and wants to participate, just let us know. Reach out to us to any of our social media channels, and then we'll make you a guest, and you're going to be one of these squares right here of the Brady Bunch squares that we do on Mondays. And that's what we have.
Thanks,
David
everyone.
And Jim, thank you so much for having joined us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.